When I say cravings, what do you think about? I bet you think about things like this. And I'm pretty sure no one thought about this. Well, hang around with me today because we're going to talk about cravings, what they are, what causes them, and how to actually crave this. When I lived in Atlanta, one of my favorite places to be at 4 p.m. on any weekday was a bakery called A Piece of Cake. At 4 p.m., they would take whatever cakes were left over from the day and they would slice them up and they would sell them to the public. One particular day, my last nerve had decided to pack its bag, turn the open sign to may or may not return, and left the building. I was at the end of my rope. I was done. So I hopped in my car. I was craving cake and needed cake in order to feel better. So I'm driving and I'm weaving in and out of the traffic and I'm tapping my finger on the steering wheel when I'm at red lights. So I finally make it to the bakery and I walk in and that smell of sweetness just hits me immediately and I start to calm down. And then I made eye contact with the shelf of cakes and I saw my cake of choice, white chocolate cake. And as I moved closer, I noticed there was a new cake in town, strawberry cake. Now, my mom makes an amazing strawberry cake. Many memories in my childhood of eating that strawberry cake and being happy. Blissfully, innocently, just over the moon childhood happy. And when I saw that cake, it was like my childhood met up with me in that bakery in that moment. And I was so excited. So I paid for the cake, I got in my car, and at the first red light, I opened up the container and I took a bite. Oh my goodness. To say that it was an experience is an understatement. It was as if angels had descended from heaven and put that cake in that store as proof of heaven. It was otherworldly. I took another bite and my heart just started beating quickly. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And I took another bite and I heard horns honking because I was swerving because I was so busy eating. And as I was eating it, I heard this little voice in the back of my mind and in my brain saying, stop, you're full, stop. I ignored it because I'm eating great cake. And I kept eating and I finished it. And when I pulled into my apartment complex and I parked in the parking space and I sat there and I looked down and my shirt was covered with cake crumbs and the container was empty with nothing but tongue tracks. And I caught my eyes in the rearview mirror and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I think a food addiction. Oh my goodness. Recently, I came across research that revealed the significance of food addiction. 15 to 20% of the general population struggles with food addiction. 11% of healthy weight individuals experience food addiction. 25% of overweight individuals. Food addiction is not about weight. It is about the behaviors and the experiences that we have with food. A few months ago, I attended a virtual conference on the neurobiology of overeating and food addiction, and it was led by Dr. Gina Willett. And as I listened to her talk over the 6 hours, I was just amazed and fascinated by the information that she shared, and I really leaned in. And today, I'm going to share all 6 hours of that presentation with you. I'm kidding, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna jump right in and talk about cravings, what they are, what causes them, and how we can shift them in the healthy direction. Simply defined, cravings is defined as a strong desire to eat. Men tend to crave savory items like fish and meat. And women, I can attest to this, tend to crave chocolate and pastries and all the sweet goodies, right? I mean, I feel ya. There's two types of cravings. There's tonic, which is a general desire for food, and there's cue-induced, meaning that an image or the presence of food stimulates our desire to eat it. Cue-induced involves physiological responses such as increased heart rate, salivation, and gastrointestinal changes. And when those things are triggered, we seek out food to get a reward. And over time, those cues trigger our reward system, and they encourage us to eat food, especially foods that are highly rewarding. And commercials really rely on this cue-induced. That's how you can be sitting down watching TV and see a commercial about a hamburger or ice cream and suddenly crave a hamburger or ice cream. This also works around the holiday times when you're at someone's house, and even though you're full, you're absolutely not hungry at all, but there's food there and it looks amazing, and so why not eat it? And then you come home and you feel miserable because you ate way too much. But it's that cue-induced craving that is working on us in those moments. Now, before I go on, I want to share another definition of craving for you. And I came across this definition a couple of weeks after I attended that conference. And it's from Psalms 34. And it says, "Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it." Now, I know what you're thinking. Dickens, there is not the word crave anywhere in that. What's wrong with you? Well, hang with me. You're going to understand. As I was reading that verse, which a verse I've read many times before, the word seek stood out to me. I mean, it really stood out. It would not let me go. And so I looked it up. And when I looked it up, I discovered that seek can also mean crave. Then I looked up other words in the verse, and I came away with this: depart, deviate from worthless or injurious things, and do good. Crave, desire a peace-filled, health-filled life and pursue it. And there it was. It was this idea of cravings being connected to something that is positive, to the idea of craving peace. And peace in this instance is really capturing this idea of a healthy life. It's this idea of physical, spiritual, and mind health. But it means we have to turn away from the other things, the things that are worthless and injurious. But how in the world do we do that? I mean, and how did we even get here in the first place where turning away was even something that we had to do? Well, hang with me, you're about to find out. So scientifically, our body's hunger drive that pushes us to go get food, is balanced with two systems: the homeostatic, which is our availability of fuel in our system, and then we have the hedonic, which is our drive or our desire to seek out food. And when our insulin, leptin, and gut hormones are low, we will seek out food so we can get back to a homeostatic place. So we have enough fuel to run our body. And if we go a long period of time, we will put in a lot of work to seek out food. Whatever we eat is a lot more palatable, which explains why when I go all day without eating, and while I'm cooking dinner and I'm starving and I grab some saltines out of the cabinet and I eat one, and I swear it's the best saltine I've ever had in my entire life. And oh my goodness, have they changed the recipe for saltines? What have they done? This is amazing. And how did I never know this before? Yeah, the saltines are exactly the same saltines. They seem different because I'm really hungry and my body wants me to eat, so I will have fuel so it can continue to function optimally. So yeah, saltines are just saltines. This little palatability of food after long periods of time without having it, this impacts that whole dieting cycle that so many of us are hooked into. We set aside foods that we really enjoy, that we find to be really rewarding, and then when the diet's over, we eat them again, and then we find ourselves hooked back into the foods that we craved, because when we haven't had them And then when we do, they're a lot more rewarding to our brain. The problem is food manufacturers have manipulated sugar and they've manipulated our fats and they've brought them together to make them this really complex experience that gives us this immediate reward. Very similar to the experience that you have when you use an opiate, and it makes us crave it more. I'm going to talk about 4 life experiences that meet up with that hyperpalatability and set our cravings on fire. Number 1, poor nutrition. There's so much information now about our diets and don't eat this and don't eat that I think over time we've all just kind of tuned it out. But I want you to tune me in. I want you to understand why a diet that's high in fat and sugar, like processed sugar, when we are hooked into that kind of diet, those foods that are processed, they're designed to cross the blood-brain barrier. And the blood-brain barrier is this thin membrane that covers our brain that protects it from toxins and bad bacteria so our brain can function optimally. And so if you're constantly exposing it to foods that are designed to cross that barrier to give you a rush, you're going to seek them out more and you're exposing your brain to toxins. And a brain that is exposed to toxins becomes inflamed. And an inflamed brain can't function optimally, which means it's harder to problem solve. It is harder to deal with conflicts and stress. You don't get as good rest and sleep. So this is like taking your car to the gas station and putting the wrong gas in your car and expecting your engine just to continue running well. It won't do it. Number 2, our mood. And so it's really common that when our mood is low, so when we're depressed or when we're highly anxious, that we will seek out foods that help us feel better. Food is a natural comforter. I mean, when we're infants, when we're upset, what happens? Our caregiver steps in and gives us food. So it makes sense that food would be comforting. The problem is we seek out the stuff that's processed. And as I told you before, processed foods lead to inflammation, and an inflamed brain can't problem solve, and so we stay depressed, and then we eat more and we get hooked into this cycle and we are like, how can I get out of this? I'm stuck. And so highlight number 3, low physical activity. When we are physically active, when we're moving our bodies and we're exercising, we connect with that ancestral side of us that would, work the land and walk long distances to get to food. And that active brain is stimulated and it's excited and it wants to seek out fuel that will sustain it. But when we work out, we are connected with our default. We want to seek out the foods that are healthy for us. And this is why after you work out, you don't really want the junk as much. It doesn't seem as satisfying to you. And you may eat it, but it just doesn't satisfy you the same way. And also you just burned a lot of calories and you don't want to, ruin that whole process. Highlight number 4, social isolation. And when we are isolated, when we are disconnected from others, we actually put our bodies in a fight or flight response. I know it seems kind of weird. If it's just me on my own in the woods and a bear comes, well, it's just me alone with the bear. But if I have my whole tribe with me, I'm more likely to survive. And so being alone, being isolated is very stressful to our body. And when we're stressed, our body produces cortisol. And for a short period of time, cortisol suppresses our appetite. So, which is great. If I'm in the woods by myself with a bear, I'm not going to be thinking about the fact that I'm hungry. I'm going to be thinking about I need to survive. And cortisol, it flips that switch to turn off our appetite and for our body to use our stored up energy. But if I'm under long periods of stress, well, now I need my appetite to come back. And so the switch is going to come on for me to get more energy, and I'm under long periods of stress. And so my body is now hooked into this idea of I need this constant flow of energy, and I'm going to crave foods that are going to give me a quick rush. So where do we go from here? How do we make the switch? How do we get back to craving the good things for us? Well, you might be expecting me to say all the things I need for you to stop or don't do anymore, but I'm not going to do that. Surprise. Instead, I'm going to tell you the things to add. I like to take a more positive approach, adding positive things into our life to take away from the time that we spend doing the negative things. I find that it makes change a lot easier, and it shifts our focus away from the things that we're sacrificing and giving up to the things that we're actually gaining and that we can experience a reward. What's the first thing that you can add? Well, use cue-induced triggers for your advantage. I know when I'm trying to learn a new habit, I'll put a Post-it note anywhere I go in the house. If I want to work out in the morning and I'm not a morning person, but it's the best time for me to work out, I leave my clothes out the night before. If I'm trying to eat more healthy foods, then I put the healthy foods in front of the junk foods so I see those first. So put cues around, right? Because that's what we need. We need an image, or we need to be in the location of it. And so if I have a cue, I'm more likely to do it. Number 2, add rest. And I don't mean like sleep longer. I mean, and yes, and that's good. And the more we hang out on this channel together, I'll talk to you about the impact of sleep on our body and our mental health. But right now what I'm talking about is moments just to rest during the day. Step outside and get fresh air. Send an encouraging text message to a friend. Just be still and listen. I take moments during the day to check in with God. How am I doing today? Am I on the right track? Do I just need to sit here and be in your presence? But just having those moments to rest, it keeps our cortisol levels at a manageable place, so then we're not trying to fight off cravings later. I just take moments just to breathe. Suggestion number 3, add movement. And I don't care what the movement is. It can be yoga. I mean, seriously, it can be whatever you want it to be. If you want to go to the gym, that's great. Do you, boo. It can be yoga. It can be dancing around your house like nobody's watching. It seriously can be whatever you want. Just move, because the more you move, then the more it stimulates your brain to want to eat the healthy things. See how we're working here? Okay. Number 4, vision. Have a vision for your life. Imagine what your life would be like if you actually took off the limits that you've placed on yourself and you believed that you were worthy and valuable and capable. And what would you be doing? How would your life look different? And each day, start adding things that are in line with that life. Because here's the thing. You already are that person. You just don't believe it. Lastly, eat more unprocessed foods. And the easiest way to make this switch is to eat foods that are higher in fiber and eat more natural sweets. So find recipes, and I'll be sharing some. You can eat nuts and vegetables, and there's all kinds of creative ways that you can make those things really tasty. I mean, I'm a foodie. I don't like nasty tasting stuff. So trust me, you can have good tasting, healthy foods, and you're gonna learn how to do that on this channel. Okay, so if you do that, if you use cue-induced triggers in your favor, and you take moments to rest, and you add more movement, and you create a vision for yourself and start moving and start actualizing who you really are, and if you start eating more unprocessed foods, you will discover, oh my goodness, that you're actually breathing life into Psalm 34:14, that you are spending more time doing these positive things, and that's taking away from the time that you're doing the not so good things, and you just start craving a life that is healthier, and you start living a life that's more in line with health, whole health. And you'll see that things just go better. And isn't that what we all want? Just a life that goes a little bit better. And I hope this information was helpful. I look forward to talking with you next time. And I just really hope you take care and have a blessed day. Bye.